YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back. And today we're talking about the teams that I think have the hardest schedule in the 2021 NFL season. Got 10 teams that I think have a very difficult schedule. I think the teams at the top will separate themselves for sure. Then there's two teams that really have a tough schedule. This isn't based off strength of schedule, the official strength of schedule, which is off last year's records. To me, that really doesn't make any sense because teams aren't going to have the same records. Teams change, of course. So really base it off of layouts, in my opinion, how they start, how they finish. You know, did the teams dig themselves in a hole at the schedule? Away primetime games, bye week, those things factor in. You know, if there's multiple stretches of really difficult games, you know, all those things factor in. There's more difficult schedules than just the 10, but these 10 kind of stood out to me for some reason here, so we'll break it down. More videos like this on the channel, more to come, breaking down schedules, and then we'll get into season predictions, record prediction for each team, playoff Super Bowl predictions, all those coming in the near future, hopefully by the end of the month here. Follow our Twitter for updates, and make sure you like and subscribe to the channel here. Here's our Twitter, constant updates, link down below for that. Don't really have a ranking system, but this is pretty much in order here for these schedules. So we'll go from, they're all tough, but we'll save the toughest teams at the end. But the Chargers here, I think, do have one, closer to that 10 range, have one of the tougher schedules. It's mainly because of that beginning, that they could get themselves, dug pretty deep in a hole there, possibly. I'm not saying that's my prediction. Because of that beginning before the bye week. The good things are bye week is a pretty good spot. The second half is pretty solid. So if they really start going, getting going, adapting, they can really get going and start winning some games. I just thought they had a ridiculously hard beginning, especially, young quarterback, sophomore season basically for Justin Herbert. New coaching staff in there. You're starting with a tough defense, starting with a high-powered offense in Dallas. And then you got Kansas City, high-powered offense, and the Raiders are usually pretty good early on. The Browns are, one of the better rosters in football. Than at Baltimore. They could be sitting at a pretty poor record. Not saying it'll happen, but you can see my point. Pretty poor record heading into Week 7. There's some tough games throughout the second half. There's just nothing that unique or extremely hard in the second half. What got them in here is that hole that they really can dig themselves into, and it's really tough for a team like this to maybe get out, young quarterback. We talked about it. So we'll see if that happens. They're going to have to play some great ball early on. Pretty similar situation of the Seattle Seahawks. This is a really rough start here. In Indy, game go either way. Tennessee, Minnesota, San Francisco, the Rams at Pittsburgh, the Saints. That's 7 straight games that they can go either way. Like, they realistically can lose most of those games. Same winning because Seattle's a good team, but that's pretty tough, and Jacksonville's not going to be a free one anymore by any means here. So heading into the bye week, Seattle, which you expect just by their name, just by who's on their team, you expect them to have a good record, but when you actually take a look at the schedule, their record might not be good. It very well could be good, but they could be in a hole, and then fresh off the bye week, you got at Green Bay, and you got some tough ones within there. Playing San Francisco at Week 4. San Fran's one of those teams we talk about all the time. Very good, talented team if healthy. It's one of those big if teams. They do have major injury concern. So you rather play them late. Obviously, Seahawks play them twice, but they draw them Week 4 and then a little later there. So I always look out for teams like that as well. The ending's not. You got at Rams, at Arizona pretty much in the last 4 games there. Pretty tough. Mainly about, just like the Chargers, a little more of a stretch than the Chargers. A little deeper of a stretch of very tough start. Do they get themselves in an unfortunate hole there is the question. Next one, got the Raiders. Another one that's a pretty damn tough start. It's interesting because I feel like the Raiders are a team that, start off pretty well, looking like a solid team. They kind of just end up blowing it, last year at least. It's kind of how Derek Carr's been playing. Starts off great, looks like a top 10 quarterback, then not so much as the year goes on. And now do they have the ability to start great? So you're going to start to wonder if if they're in a bit of a hole, if they're not playing great the first half of the year, are they in deep? Are they in big trouble here? You got Baltimore, you got Pittsburgh, Miami, Chargers, Bears, Broncos. I think the other 2 teams we just talked about maybe a little tougher earlier. But then you look at the back half, it's pretty tough as well. So it's not like it's top heavy like the other ones. It's pretty tough. I mean, that ending Kansas City at Cleveland, Broncos, Colts, Chargers, it's pretty damn tough. So it's kind of consistently a tough one. Of course, the topper is they could start in a hole because of that stretch. But they also, I could see that, they start off well a lot. So I can see that as well. Next team. Talk about the Dolphins. Yeah, that's why I don't like strength of schedule, because you look at the actual strength of schedule based off records from last year. You see the Dolphins they'll say they have one of the easier schedules. I'm going to disagree on that, and that's why I don't like the strength of schedule, is because, you really just can't go off of last year's records at all. I mean, it means something, but very little, in my opinion. I think it's a rough start once again. At New England, Buffalo, Raiders, Colts, Bucks. The Jags aren't free one this year, but we'll look through 5 weeks there, and those are all losable games. They're trying to get Tua going, some new pieces here. They're a very good team that can win a lot of those games, but we can sit here and say it's pretty damn possible that they can have one win, maybe zero. I don't think so, but it's a rough first 5 right there, real rough. At least it's only 5, but then you keep looking down. There's some tough opponents, but that week 14 bye is rough. You got to stay healthy all the way through, which is near impossible. 13 weeks there, so that's pretty tough as well to add on top of that first 5, the toughness of the first 5. Do they dig themselves in a hole? But then you look at the ending, looking at that beginning and looking at the bye week, chances are, look at those last 3 games, chances are they're going to, it's a team it's a good team. This could be it feels like a playoff team, but we know they're going to be fighting for a playoff spot, especially looking at the beginning part of that schedule. They're going to be fighting for that playoff spot, most likely the last 3 games, at Saints, at Titans, home against the Patriots. That is extremely tough for a team that's probably going to be fighting in there. They're going to have to win 2 out of those 3, and we're predicting at this point, but that's a pretty tough schedule, in my opinion, just the way it's laid out there. Very, very tough for the Dolphins. Colts got another team that has an extremely tough start. Real tough start. You got Seattle, Rams, at Titans, at 3 in a row. Titans, Dolphins, Ravens. So that first 5 is extremely hard. What I also don't like is that they play the Titans that early. Because we all know it. We all kind of feel it's going to be Titans, Colts for that AFC South battle. I think the Titans are probably going to be the better team earlier in the year. Colts still adjusting with Carson Wentz. You don't want to have to play the Titans that early, in my opinion. These good teams that early. So that could be really the difference, that they play them both twice first half of the season. So that's unfortunate. Colts are a team I think will kind of get going as the year goes on. I think they have the opportunity to do that with the schedule, kind of. You do kind of play your Bills, Bucks late. The last 4 games aren't that easy, too. At Jacksonville, again, the Jags are sneaky. Bye week is extremely, extremely late there. This is rough. Yeah, this is definitely a rough schedule here. And first 5 is what really stands out. Playing San Francisco earlier, rather, if you're going to have San Francisco, you rather play them later than earlier, because it's a dominant team if earlier when healthy, injury concern. But you kind of draw them on the earlier portion. That's pretty tough. It's an extremely hard schedule for the Indianapolis Colts there. Carson Wentz is going to have to get going right off the bat there, right out of the gate. Next, the Panthers. Panthers they got that bad bye week in week 13. This second half of this schedule is ridiculous. We talked about a lot of teams that possibly can be in a hole, and can they dig the way out? Can they get their way out? Early part of the schedule. Panthers really don't have that. It's really not that tough. It's not easy, but it's not tough in the beginning part of the schedule. And it's kind of going to, maybe it'll be looking like last year, maybe even crazier, that this is going to feel like a playoff team, through, maybe week 7, 8, round there. Panthers, they're looking pretty good, but then you get to that back part of the schedule, even part of those that I mentioned. But, look at how ridiculous it gets on top of the late bye week. You even could start as high as 6, Vikings, at Giants, at Falcons, Patriots, at Cardinals, Washington, Miami. After the bye week, Falcons, Bills, Bucks, Saints, Bucks. Last 2 being away. Ridiculous. Reminds me of the Falcons schedule last year. It was ridiculously hard. They played the Bucks and the Saints like that. It's like the same schedule here. And even before that, Bills. They got to play at Buffalo. It's going to feel, again, early on, it's going to feel like, okay, the Panthers could be a playoff team here. And then, look, based on the schedule, not saying it's my prediction or anything, but that kind of can get wiped away just because how tough the damn schedule is in the second half of the season. Mainly the late part, the playoff push part. Extremely tough. Somewhat similar here is the Vikings. In the second half, the schedule is ridiculous, but they also, why maybe it's a little harder than Carolina. The beginning is, we've seen tougher in the beginning, but it's pretty tough because you got that back-to-back away to start, not free ones, Arizona being tough. And then you finally get to go home, but you get to play Seattle and the Cleveland Browns there, so that is pretty tough. We've seen harder beginnings, though. Bye week's in a pretty good spot, but then you got Cowboys primetime at Baltimore, at Chargers, Packers, at 49ers, and you see the Steelers primetime. And then you got two huge key NFC North games that are both primetime and both away, Bears and Packers within 3 weeks. And in the middle there is, of course, the Rams, who are expected to be contenders. So, I mean, this second half of the schedule, the beginning is not easy either. The beginning's pretty tough the way that's laid out. But that second half is this might be the hardest second half of the season for any team. So the Vikings absolutely have to start off extremely, extremely strong. Could be one of those teams that are like, okay, the Vikings, this is looking like a playoff team again, looking really good. Then they hit that second half and they could get wiped away there. So that is unfortunate second half of the season there. Moving on, NFC North team, the Lions. This is probably the third hardest schedule right there with the Vikings, in that 3-4 range. Again, I thought it was hard to rank these, separate them, but I did think there was a top two, and we'll get to those. But I keep mentioning drawing San Francisco early is pretty rough. Week 1, it's a fully healthy team. They are a scary team when they're fully healthy. They just got so much injury concern everywhere. So if you know they're your opponent, you got to be praying you're playing. I mean, it could mean nothing really, but you rather definitely. It's one of those teams. There's several teams like that, but that's kind of the big one. And you get them in week 1. That's just unfortunate. And then right after that, you're at Green Bay. You play the Ravens. You're at Chicago, at Minnesota. I mean, there's a shit. I like what the Lions have done this offseason for the most part. But that's, you almost could say it's pretty likely they'll be 0-5. It's chances are maybe they sneak one away, but that's pretty tough. Bengals and the Rams, bye week 9, that's okay. But then fresh off the bye week at Pittsburgh, at Cleveland, then you got the Bears, Vikings back to back again. And then that late stretch pretty tough too. Broncos, Cardinals, but then 2 away games in a row, Falcons, Seahawks, and then the Packers again. I mean, that's just overall the whole entire thing is tough. There's no really space where you can breathe here. That's why this is up here. There's really, the bye week's okay. There's really no time to breathe for the Detroit Lions. There's other teams that play really tough opponents. And again, every team plays tough opponents. I think the mistake people make is they only look at their favorite team and they go, we're playing really hard teams. Everybody's playing hard teams. Maybe some a little more than others. Everyone's playing hard teams. I think it's about the layout. Do you have time to breathe? Is there a space in there? When's the bye week? How's the early part? How's the playoff push part? This is just overall just tough. There's really no room to breathe here. First glance, I just really thought there was two obvious top two in my opinion here with the hardest schedules for the 2021 season. I got the Cardinals up here. You're starting off in Tennessee. It's a tough one. You got Minnesota at Jacksonville again, especially early. You don't want to play Jacksonville early because I don't know how you're going to. That's a tough game plan early. It's one of those game plan nightmares early on. So if you're going to play them, hopefully it's late, not in this case. At the Rams, again, San Francisco. You get the 49ers twice, and they're both first half of the season. It's right in the midpoint for the second one. You wish that is late. It's Cardinals' sake. You wish you'd rather play San Francisco late, in my opinion. Feel very strongly about that. You play them twice early, but kind of going back, look at those first six games. I don't think they're going to start 0-6, but there's a shot. They can be coming here with realistically 1 or 2 wins. They're a good team, so they can be over 500, but it's extremely, extremely tough. And then you're fresh out of those tough 6 games. Texans, if Deshaun Watson's playing, it's no freebie either. But then you got Packers, you got the Niners again. It's extremely, and the bye week is very late. You get on top of that, week 12. And then that late stretch is pretty tough. There's tougher late stretches, but it's pretty damn tough. At Chicago, Rams, at Detroit, Colts, Cowboys, Seahawks. There's definitely tougher late stretches, but on top of the ridiculously hard beginning, the late bye week, the Niners, and two times in the first half of the season, is a very tough schedule. They got a lot of new faces. They kind of built this offseason like they're going to go for the Super Bowl this year. It's Super Bowl or bust. It almost felt like at times there's more Super Bowl or bust teams definitely, but that are more of that label. But and then you could possibly be in a hole to start the year. That's pretty tough. I just thought the Pittsburgh Steelers had the hardest schedule in football this year, in my opinion here. The Steelers were the best team in football through, 12 weeks last year? just really dominated. And all of a sudden, something happened, and then people had their explanations. They played, I'm not saying they did, maybe it was easier teams early in the year. Now they're playing tougher teams. They're just declining teams. They're figuring them out. Some injuries. Maybe it's a mixture of that. Well, now they're going to have a very tough early schedule here. You look at Buffalo, tough. The Raiders are tough early year. Steelers, felt like they almost got out game planned or out coached against the Bengals late last year, so that's no freebie for sure. At Green Bay, Broncos, Seattle. Heading into the bye week, week 7, it may look a lot different than last year, especially the Steelers lost some players as well. They can be heading in the bye week. It could be complete opposite of last year, really. They could, they're going to have wins, but that's tough. And then fresh off the bye week, you're at Cleveland. That's an extremely tough one. But the back part of the schedule too. Going at the Chargers, at the Bengals. Remember, there's some game plan situation there. Maybe Ravens at Thursday night, going to Minnesota. One of the loudest stadiums as well. And then Tennessee, Kansas. Oh my God, it's ridiculous. I can't tell what's harder, the beginning or the end. I can't tell what's harder. It's like it's extremely hard. You can be in a hole to start, and then you can be losing your playoff push at the end here. That's Ravens, Vikings, Titans. I think it makes it even tougher that it's Thursday night in Minnesota on top of all these other games too. Even the Chargers, Bengals, Ravens, Vikings, Tennessee. You play the best AFC teams in a row right there. They literally play the four, debatable, but it might be the 4 best AFC teams besides the Bills maybe in a row right there. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So that's an extremely tough schedule, especially with the Steelers are a little different this year too. In terms of on paper on their roster, it doesn't look like they're as strong as they were last year. So it's just extremely tough. It's ridiculous of a schedule there. So I definitely thought they had the hardest. The Cardinals are right there with them. We talked about there's some teams, and the Lions it's consistently tough. And the Vikings and the Panthers pretty similar. They have the second half nightmares, second half of the season. And there's some other in the beginning teams we talked about might be in a hole. Maybe it's not as hard down. They're going to have to get going down the stretch. They're going to have to rely on bouncing back, not getting down, not losing confidence, because they could be in a little bit of a hole to start, and teams bounce back from that all the time. So we will see. I know people will be complaining that the strength of schedule says this. I don't base things off of last year's record, so that'll be why I don't really go. Some of these teams, there's probably some similarities. I really look at layouts. There's some teams that play really good teams. But if they got room to breathe, it's kind of every other. There's some spaces. They don't have too bad of a bye week. They have home primetime games in really important moments, late in the season, home in those big games rather than away. That kind of gives you the advantage. So I look for those things. I'm not just going to I don't have like a formula as everyone else, last year's records. I kind of just look at the layout. It's what I do every year here. So we'll do more videos like this for sure. And maybe we can talk about every team's biggest game, things like that. And then we're getting ready to go into our season predictions, record predictions, season predictions, placements, playoffs, Super Bowl. Really excited about that we do every single year here. So we'll get there at the end of the month, hopefully, or early next month, because there's a lot to get to. We got to go through every team's record predictions very shortly, very soon here. So excited about all that. Hope you can join us, subscribe, smash the like button, turn notifications on. Make sure you follow that Twitter link down below for that. Anything else you need. That's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.